So it's important for us to remember that under U.S. antitrust laws, monopolies themselves, and I hate using a double negative, is not illegal. But our U.S. antitrust laws include rules against some restrictive practices. Not all, but some. When we're talking about restrictive practices, what are we talking about? We're talking about practices that don't involve outright agreement, outright or explicit agreement, to raise prices or reduce the quantity produced. So what do these restrictive practices include? They include practices that might have the effect of reducing competition. So what are these practices that are not included in restrictive practices, right? This is just collusion, which is illegal. So restrictive practices are not collusion. Restrictive practices are practices that might have an effect on reducing competition. What are some of our types of restricted practices? So, some of these practices that might have an effect on reducing competition. The first one that we're going to talk about is a minimum resale price maintenance agreement. Say that 5 times fast. So this is when there's a requirement that the dealer who buys from a manufacturer to sell for at least a certain minimum price. And now that we're thinking about it, the thing that comes to mind for me is like a Tempur-Pedic mattress, right? Like you can never get a deal on an actual Tempur-Pedic mattress. And that might have to do with the fact that they just cost so much and the stores aren't getting very much off of it. But it really seems like there's a minimum resale price maintenance agreement going on.
Is it still a minimum resale price agreement when the producer is the one setting the price because they're dealing in their own mattresses?
That's different. But it's like if the Tempur-Pedic sells to Mattress Firm and says you can't sell this mattress for less than $4,500, that is a restrictive practice. Some of the other situations that kind of fall in a gray area between this one and the exclusive dealing one, which is going to come, is like if you list a product on Amazon You can't list it for less than that anywhere else. Otherwise, they'll pull your product. So if you try to run a sale on Target or something like that, or on Walmart, right? Because Walmart now allows you to run a little store and sell it through the Walmart website in the same way that Amazon does. You can't sell it for less than Amazon's. Otherwise, your listing will get pulled. And then the fees that Amazon has been charging their sellers has just increased every year. So there's all sorts of issues with this. The second type of restrictive practice is called exclusive dealing. So exclusive dealing is an agreement between a manufacturer and a dealer, and this can be legal or illegal. So again, it's how restrictive is it? So this is an agreement that a dealer will sell only products from one manufacturer.
This is like Costco's entire business model.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's exclusive dealing, at least like within their brands. There's also other types of exclusive dealing. So again, this can be legal if the purpose of the contract is to encourage competition between dealers. So legal if they can prove that that may be a purpose of the contract, right? If the purpose of the contract is to encourage competition between dealers. So, for example, it's illegal for Ford Motor Company to sell its cars only to Ford dealers, or for General Motors to sell only to General Motors dealers. So, however, exclusive deals may also limit competition. So if one large retailer obtained exclusive rights to be the sole distributor of televisions, computers, whatever sold by a number of companies, that exclusive contract would have an anti-competitive impact on the other retailers. So these are kind of situation by situation calls. The next type of exclusive dealing, or the next type of restrictive practices, is the situation of tying sales. So tying sales happens when a customer is allowed to buy one product if and only if the customer also buys a second product. So this is controversial because it forces consumers to purchase something they may not actually want or need. Additionally, the additional required products might not actually be in the consumer's best interest. So let's say if you wanted to purchase some popular, piece of software or some popular bit for your computer, or whatever the case may be, and let's say the store required you to purchase a certain monitor, right, in order to get that particular graphics card, whatever the case may be, right? The products are really only loosely related. There's no reason that one purchase has to be contingent on the other. Even if the person is interested in an extra monitor, tying that particular model of monitor prevents the customer from having the option of selecting one of the other numerous types of monitors that are available on the market. So tying sales is frowned upon, and it's much easier than with exclusive dealing to show that it's not in the best interest of the customer and therefore is a restrictive practice. The fourth and last of our restrictive practices that we're going to talk about today is the situation of bundling. So bundling, I'm sure we've all seen this, both with our cell phones and with our computers, right? All the bloatware that's always on them. It's a situation where multiple products are sold as once. So bundling typically can offer an advantage to customers by allowing them to acquire multiple products for a better price, right? So cable companies will, ask you to bundle your cable, internet, and phone through a special price through this bundling, right? You are allowed to purchase these products separately, but the price of the bundling is usually more appealing. You also got to be careful, though, because sometimes they'll get you, like the Great Plains Communication Company here, by being like, oh, it's cheaper for you to get a phone and a television and internet than just internet alone. And then like 3 years later, I call them to be like, hey, I'm thinking about like turning my internet off sometimes when I'm gone for the summers, like what's going on? And then we were talking on the phone. I was like, yeah, it's just like really expensive. And they're like, oh, well, we could put you on a cheaper plan. I was like, what do you mean a cheaper plan? You guys told me that this was the cheapest plan, that it was actually cheaper than just getting internet. And they were like, oh, well, that might have been the case at the time. But now we can save you, $20 or whatever by like dropping all this extra bundled crap and just having the internet, which is the only thing that I use, right? I don't use a landline and I don't use cable television. So it's my little public service announcement for, keep an eye on your subscription services, right? Sometimes they'll sell you not necessarily a bill of lies at the time, but a bill of lies later, right? So you got to always, vet your things, and it's just a good idea to just kind of look at your subscriptions every once in a while.
So these 4 practices are illegal implicitly or as proven by the effect of consumers on supply and demand?
As proven by if this is impacting consumer choices and negatively impacting the consumer experience.
So extremely difficult to prove.
Yes, extremely difficult to prove. Yep. Now, sometimes firms will not be terribly bright, and they'll literally have like memos talking about doing this stuff.
And they won't be physical, and they won't burn them, and they'll have it digitally stored. Yeah.
I mean, it's happened though. You know what I mean? Like there's evidence of like firm plane companies, flight companies, right? Aviation companies, fixing prices between them. You know what I mean? And they were able to get. I think they might have tapped their phones or something. I don't know how, but they were able to get actual proof of one CEO telling the other CEO, hey, if we both increase our prices, then nobody's going to have a other place to go for their cheap flights, and then we'll just make more money this year or this quarter or whatever the case may be. So yes, it is difficult to prove, but the government has its ways. They can tap phones. They can subpoena things, there can be whistleblowers, right? That was actually part of the Amazon thing. I think there were some whistleblowers in Amazon talking about these anti-competitive practices and the unfair to consumer business model that Amazon has been pursuing, right?